Hey, it's digital noise time. It's digital noise time. We're here to do digital noise with you.
Ooh, ha ha, digital noise.
We were laughing before we got started. Like, Aaron, whenever the camera goes on, he totally changes into like a late night, like, just play Marvin Gaye songs radio DJ. He's like, hey, this is Aaron Papa Bear Woodle in the midnight hour coming to you live. I got a little songs for you lovers out there.
Welcome to the One of Us radio show, introducing the sexiest little numbers that you'll ever see in a home release show.
That seems unlikely.
Actually, this set is not very sexy. That does not fit. Maybe last week's episode. There was some sexy in there. There is not sexy in this episode.
Our set is about as dorky as you get this week, which is like a strong contrast to our very arty, indie, foreign set we did previously.
It was very drama-heavy last week. Very much like this is what a normal person or a cinephile would watch. This week is nothing but geek stuff, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, I mean, there's one thing that's not geek stuff, but, you know, it's still pop, if you will.
I'd argue it's geekery, if only because it's based on a real-life event, and so there's some little geekery there, but we'll get to there when we get there.
So, I do want to point out right off the bat that this is available in a video version for you subscribers out there at the brown coat level or above. That's $5 a month. And you can see the video version. We actually show you the images of the boxes of the movies that we're talking about, so you can be clear what we're talking about and stuff like that. Thanks to our editor, Mike McAllister, who throws all that stuff in there for us after the fact. You get to see our beautiful smiling faces, the Papa Bear behind the sultry voice.
Yeah, you can get to see me make kissy faces and other inappropriate gestures at the camera occasionally.
He does. I'm calling HR like right now. Well, wait, I am HR. Shit. Okay. Got more like HR puffin stuff.
Yeah, do something about it. I dare you.
So this is not for someone who is an advertiser. This is just, there's a guy who is one of the providers of Blu-rays that I've been dealing with for years and years. And over time, we've kind of gotten to be friends. And he actually has gotten to the point where he's a fan of the show, which is awesome, man. He's like, when we started doing video, he's like, can you send me the video link? Kind of sheepishly. It's like, okay, sure. But he is just a good guy. And he sometimes sends me stuff that, you know, little cool side stuff. And I found out just recently he had his own side company. This is at Agronautics. Right?
Ooh, good name.
Once again, this is not a paid thing. I got no money or bonuses or anything from him. I had never heard of this. And I was like, whoa, what is this stuff? So I went and checked this out. And it's pretty cool. It's like weird Funko Pop type stuff. Ooh. But like with all punk and rock and roll stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of like Murphy's Law, Descendants. I love it. The Milo Goes to College Throbblehead.
I'm actually kind of freaking out about the fact that there's a band called Pennywise and I didn't know it.
I really want this one, the Gibby Haynes limited edition Throbblehead, which is the lead singer of the Butthole Surfers. He's got his megaphone and everything. But yeah, I'm really excited about some of the stuff on here. It's pretty damn cool. And I highly recommend going and check it out, especially with Christmas coming up just around the corner. You know that you're going to have friends who are maybe into this sort of stuff at all, maybe into the little more alternative stuff, and this would be a cool little gift that maybe they don't even know anything. I'm into this stuff, and I didn't even know this existed. And I was like, wow, I want like everything on here. So just throwing that out there. Cheers to you, brother. Let's talk about some movies.
Let's do that.
All right, not just movies, but TV shows. Okay, we're just gonna start with something you didn't get to see.
I know. It's like, let's go right into the one that I can't really talk about at all.
Yeah, we're talking about The Flash, the complete 6th season. Look, I know what I said. I just don't have time to watch all these CW shows anymore. There's too many. And I really don't. This is the first year that when the Blu-rays came out, I hadn't actually watched them. So I found myself in the unenviable position of like this long season of television. You know, I mean, 19 episodes, 1945 and some change minute episodes that I had to watch like marathon through, which is like not always fun.
No, I'm really excited to hear where you land on this, though, because I'm not going to lie. As much as I very publicly went, I'm done with the CW superhero shows. I've been like, maybe I ought to start watching them again. You know, like they're indie and I can just kind of slowly work my way through them.
There's always, The Flash has gone through so many cast changes over the years as actors come and go. And as just recently, the guy who plays the elongated man, apparently they dug up that he had... Look, generally, if you posted something years and years and years and years ago that is like borderline offensive or edgy, trying to be funny, I mean, come on. It kind of depends on the time when it happened and the degree to which it was borderline offensive, edgy, right?
Oh, I didn't realize that his thing was a long time ago. I thought he had done something recently.
It was like 2 years before he got cast on the show, basically, right? So I was like, well, that's not very long ago, first, right? Like well past the point where anyone should know better. And two, his stuff was actively offensive. Like he was still just trying to be funny. Like I don't think he is a guy who believes the things that he was joking about.
It
was
still inappropriate.
It was like way inappropriate. It wasn't like the stuff with the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his stiff face?
James Gunn.
Yeah, where James Gunn's stuff was like, look, you're trying to be edgy, but none of this is wildly offensive. It's very obvious that you're being facetious with these tweets, and it's not so obvious with this other guy. Point being, he's getting kicked off the show, although they made an announcement like, well, to wrap up his storyline, he'll be back for a 2-episode arc next season. But after that, they're going to pull, he can change into other forms, so we'll just say, now he looks like this guy, which is, But this season... I mean, the show is so hit and miss. It started so strong, but eventually it's just kind of like, all right, it's another season of The Flash. Man.
Yeah. I maintain The Flash had one of the strongest first 2-season arcs I've seen, where like I was totally into it, and I would even be okay almost just viewing those as standalones, but it seemed that relatively quickly they kind of started running out of ideas and they started just going a lot more goofy and outlandish without ever really tying it all together in a way that made sense.
Yeah, that tends to be the case, and it just kind of jumps from one thing to the other. Certainly the first half of the season is largely about the build-up to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was the big crossover this year. That was the biggest one they've done yet. And certainly a lot of people, including me, without watching all the separate shows, was watching that week to week to see, this is based on a major series and there are all these guest stars, like huge guest stars on it. And I was like, I got to see how that plays out. And to be honest, it was just okay. It was, I kept going, well, that was weird that you got that awesome actor to do this and you're just going to do like 2 minutes and then leave it at that. I kind of think that was not they get Kevin Conroy to play alternate Earth Batman and he's like in one scene and you're like, no, he should have been there the whole thing.
That's how they got Kevin Conroy to play alternate Earth Batman. The same with Tom Welling coming back as Superman. It's because they only got to show it for a day.
Dude, neither one of those actors are excessively working. Right now. I'm just saying I'm sure they would have said yes to a longer run on the show.
It's like, you sure you don't want me to be here for like a week? It's cool. I got nothing to do right now. I'm good.
But, I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of little mini stories. You get to see a lot of wrap-ups of previous stories that have ended. Like Cisco finds out like his girlfriend from Earth whatever has been murdered. And so Danny Trejo shows up to like, I didn't really trust you before, but I learned to like you, and now I know you liked her, and she's been killed, so I kind of need your help. And then it looks like Cisco did it, and so you've got Danny Trejo trying to kill him again, and I don't know, man. And it ends on another like, we weren't done yet, so we just kind of wrapped it up because of COVID. I don't know. I'm very mixed about this season. It's not terrible. There's nothing in here I went, yuck, but...
I'm going to bring back my theory, and I think DC/CW really needs to adopt this, where all of their shows only last 3 seasons, and then they stop it, and the character still exists, and they can show back up in random cameo appearances in future ones, but then they're like, no, we're done. We're going to go do Blue Beetle now. Or
no, what they do. They basically, that's how they cast Legends of Tomorrow. They're just like, they're not on that show anymore. Welcome to Legends of Tomorrow for 2 seasons.
That's not wrong.
It's not. That seems like that should just be your retirement plan for these characters. But this is on Blu-ray now. There's deleted scenes from 9 episodes, about 15 minutes. There's a gag reel, like there always is, about 7 minutes long. There's one of the episodes, Kiss Kiss Breach Breach, is presented as a noir episode, which means they just did a black and white version you can watch.
Is that
instead.
just a ripoff of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which it has to be?
Yeah, or a tribute. I mean, I don't know if I mean, it's obviously referencing it, so I would say a tribute to it.
Does somebody say this is just a tribute halfway through the episode?
No, there's never been a Tenacious D reference that I can recall on the CW, and there really should be. Man, they brought in Tenacious D as Tenacious D from an alternate Earth, and they were like Superman level powered with their rock. That would be amazing.
For a second, I thought you said they actually did that. And I was like, holy shit, I'm in. I'm going to watch all of it just for that.
CW, you want to up your ratings? You need like a 3-episode arc where Tenacious D is like comes in as like the Deus Ex Machina from an alternate Earth, but they're not playing other superheroes or known. They're playing Tenacious D, but they remembered the greatest song in the world and it gave them ultimate power.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Chris already wrote it for you. Like, honestly, I'll probably watch a lot of these shows, this one included, whenever the contracts expire and they end up on HBO Max, which they inevitably will. But until then, I'm glad you took this bullet for me.
I will say as well, one thing I really like about having this, though, because I did like Crisis on Infinite Earths. I don't think it's the strongest of the crossovers, but it's the only thing on here I will go back and rewatch. And the bonus disc is just all the Crisis on Infinite Earths episodes together, along with the behind-the-scene featurettes. Now, they also do that on the Arrow Season 8 Blu-ray and on the Batwoman Season 1, but I don't want either one of those. So,
so there you go.
So there you go. All right. I guess to be fair, we should probably switch to something that Aaron has actually seen, which is everything else on the show. And yes, more comic stuff. This time we're talking about the direct-to-video animated superhero film based on the CW Seed. I didn't realize that this was a series first. Seed series Deathstroke Knights and Dragons, which is produced by Warner Brothers Animation. It is now available on Blu-ray. And you know who Deathstroke is. He shows up in any given DC thing. They're determined the Deathstroke is going to be big with the live action stuff.
Honestly, I usually like Deathstroke when he shows up in something.
Okay. But
oh my God, not in this. This is one of the rare few movies that wasn't just like, it didn't just have problems. This movie aggressively made me angry. And like by the time we got to the end of this story, I was hate texting Chris. Like,
he was.
Are you fucking kidding me? This is what they're doing right now? This is just bad. So like when Chris handed me this movie, he goes, okay, look, fair warning, like they're doing this thing with Deathstroke where they're kind of turning him into a hero. And they're doing this amnesia thing, and he kind of hand waved it away, and I was like, okay, cool. I don't care about Deathstroke, so I'm okay with that. And so basically, the movie takes place after Deathstroke has kind of learned that he has a kid and is trying to be a better dad, kind of. And he's working on himself. He's working on himself,
as you do when you're a trained drug-fueled, near immortal killer.
And so he's kind of this anti-hero-esque character, trying to right the wrongs of his past, which is, okay, cool. We've all seen that setup. And it's not long until one of the villains in the movie goes after his estranged son and family and basically takes his son, going like, if you don't do this, we're going to kill you. And forcing Deathstroke to come in, who, of course, tosses a wrench into all the villains' plans immediately, like Deathstroke does, but forces him to come in to kind of work with the bad guys. And that's where we get into the plot, which involves Deathstroke's son with another maybe unknown family member of Deathstroke, as well as a really cool, I always like when they show up, Serpent King, who's like this B-list villain who always just is like randomly showing up in the DC universe now, and it's always fun to see him. And like you'd expect this movie to be good. It's very much going with the R-rated Suicide Squad-esque stuff where it's as bloody as they humanly can make it. These tend to be dark and kind of gothic and mostly entertaining, if a little bit grimcore or grimdark.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with this movie. The problem with this movie is that every narrative technique they're using for the first 2/3 of this movie is to set up this gothic horror-esque Shakespearean drama with family members going up against family members and people having to make dark choices that are interesting, and Deathstroke ultimately having to go up against his, slight spoiler, children. And then at the beginning of the third act, they go, never mind, we really aren't setting any of that up. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use a traditional superhero plot that we could have put in any Batman cartoon or any Superman animation, or pick your goddamn superhero. And Deathstroke becomes a generic superhero who can just kill people really well. It pissed me off so much when that happened because everything they were setting up was cool. I was with it. I loved the idea of putting this person who's trying to be good through the ringer of what happens when your personal emotional commitments and what's important to you conflict with your desire to be a good person going forward. Like, that's cool. What they did is lazy, pathetic, and it should never have existed. I hated this movie.
I did too. And you're right. This is just so, I mean, come on, guys. You'll have to be listening and hear that people are like, don't be just grimdark for the sake of being grimdark. That's ridiculous and sad. And this is ridiculous and sad in that way. It's, look how edgy we are. Like, look, I don't mind something that's super gory and gets dark, but
it has to be important to the narrative. It has to be a part of the story, or it's just them jerking off into the camera with blood, you know, which, ew, God, I'm so sorry immediately for the image that got.
Honestly, for animation, I tend to feel that way more strongly than I do with live action, because at least there's an artfulness to being able to do live action blood and gore that I can admire in and of itself. With here, it's just another drawing. No offense against artists, but I don't think it's harder to draw blood and gore than it is not to draw blood and gore. Where it's significantly harder to do it in live action and is its own art form.
Yeah, it doesn't have fun. The story makes no sense. Skip it.
Yeah, and I hate to say it because I love Michael Chiklis and he voices Deathstroke. I will say, look, man, Deathstroke is good when he's used inside of a plot with other better characters like the Teen Titans. Yeah, Deathstroke belongs as a villain in the Teen Titans, no question. Whoa. I even liked him on his appearance on Arrow, what they did with him on there. He's got a cool outfit, but ultimately, he's Deadpool without the jokes. Yeah. And who wants that?
He works great as someone who's scary, who can authentically hurt the heroes. Mm-hmm. And like, even if you want to make him into a main character, I think that can work. But he's not a superhero. Even if he is going to be a good guy, he's not a superhero. He's someone different.
There's a problem with, unless it's a god-level villain, which is very hard to turn into a good guy or a middle ground guy. Like, you don't get a lot of... there have been playing around with making Thanos not an out-and-out villain, but ultimately he's an out-and-out villain. With characters on the level of, like, Deathstroke... Man, these comic companies just can't leave well enough alone. They get popular enough, they're like, oh, we got to find a way to make them not into a straight villain. You know, ever since we managed somehow to do it with the Punisher.
I was about to say, he wants to be Punisher. That's what it is. They want
ever since the Punisher, everybody wants to do that with every villain. Venom, everyone. They're all like, no, they're good guys now. You're like, stop it. You created a good, memorable bad guy. Why do you want to take that away? I don't understand. There's too few of them as it is. I mean,
you can have a nuanced villain who thinks he's right, who is not a good guy. Like you don't have to go that extra step. But anyways.
Yeah. So this comes with one extra, Deathstroke, one-man death machine, for about 14 minutes. It's the featurette, the brief history of the character, how it was designed, moving it into the full-length animated production here, how he's been portrayed in other media, that has Marv Wolfman, George Perez, Michael Chiklis, Manu Bennett, who played Deathstroke on Arrow, and what have you, which, I mean, I guess if you were totally new to the character, sure, but why would you even get this and watch this if you were totally new to the character? I know there's people out there who totally love Deathstroke. I don't want to take that away from you if you found value in the character, but for me, outside of his appearances and other things, I just never have, and this didn't do anything to change my mind.
I'll be honest, the character is not the problem with this movie. So yeah, to me at least.
No, that's true. Now, I will say that as much as we've been having problems lately with a lot of these DC Warner Brothers animation films that have been coming out, the last couple have been mediocre to bad. And I felt just starting to turn that around a bit was our next one, which is Superman Man of Tomorrow. The 39th in the DC Universe animated original films, now on Blu-ray and 4K, which of course animation always looks fantastic, the better quality that you get. I always say, if you can get the top quality for an animated thing like this, then get it, because you will notice the difference. And they kind of ended the primary animated DC universe with one of their recent ones. Do you remember the name of it?
Oh, you mean Justice League Dark Apocalypse War?
Yeah, it was kind of this is the end of the DC animated universe as we've created up to this point. Now we're starting over. And this is kind of that starting over point. At least I assume it is. I mean, it's a new Superman story starting out with him at a younger age. He's an intern at the Daily Planet. He is just meeting Lois Lane. Lex Luthor hasn't been revealed as a villain. It starts with Lois Lane being the one who sort of reveals that, oh shit, Luthor is a piece of shit. And he's trying to put out tech that's bad, as Luthor does.
It's Superman year one. Because like Lois Lane is an intern who becomes a reporter. Superman doesn't really know he's Superman fully yet.
He doesn't even have the name yet.
It's basically... It's like taking Batman Begins, but making it true to the spirit of Superman. I kind of fell hard for this movie. I have one real, honest to God, big issue with it. That's a character design that accidentally affects the narrative. But like, this gave me what I didn't realize I needed from a Superman picture. Because I like Man of Steel for the most part, even though I acknowledge its problems. Yeah. And this is the first time since Superman Returns where Superman has felt like a beacon of hope.
Yes.
And like he's actually gone, my sole focus is saving people. I'm going to stop this thing too, but I want to make sure that people get saved. It's bright, it's colorful.
That's the subtext. That's the subtext of this. The whole thing is him realizing that he is a man of the people. He may not be from Earth, but as far as he's concerned, that doesn't matter. He is an Earthling. Yeah, he is one of these people, and he believes in always doing the right thing and saving people no matter what. And they achieved this by bringing in Lobo, who is this crazy outer space motorcycle riding hitman basically, who comes to Earth, who initially is somebody they fight, and they end up having to team up with him because there ends up being a bigger problem, which is I don't know, honestly. I assume this character Parasite is in the comics, which is a guy who gets infected, a good man who gets infected by sort of a side effect of one of Lobo's weapons that even Lobo doesn't know is the thing that would happen, and it turns him into a giant kaiju basically.
So I think Parasite's at least made an appearance in the comics by now. I do not know if he was a Bruce Timm animated universe original or if he existed in the comics before that. But like my main association with Parasite is him showing up in that original The Animated Adventures of Superman. And actually, Parasite's kind of my main issue with this movie. Like, I love so much about the design element, the way Metropolis feels like this futuristic city of tomorrow. I legit teared up a bit in this movie just because there was so much hope, and good God, did I need that. But Parasite, so the idea is this good person who becomes fused at a genetic level with this compound that basically makes him absorb things. He's the absorbing man. So if he touches something, he can siphon the energy off of it. And how that plays out in the character has been interpreted a few different ways. In this one, he slowly becomes more and more reptilian, and he ultimately becomes kind of a kaiju, which, okay, I'll admit.
No, straight up a kaiju.
If you remove the issues I had with it, the idea of this becoming a Superman versus kaiju fight made me very happy. But my problem is that because he's this reptilian thing, it feels more like he's becoming this alien monster, and with the way they set up the character, I think it would have been a lot more interesting and would have made a lot more sense if it was more Akira-esque, bio-organic, and bits of metal and flesh working together. And so like that character design element always felt wrong throughout the entire movie, even though everything else around it I enjoyed. But that never went away from me.
I had problems with it initially. I like what they were doing with the idea of his humanity is still buried in there, and that's affecting the choices he made, and is indeed a weak spot in some ways. And a sympathy. He's a good villain in the sense that Superman always looks for the humanity inside all of his villains to appeal to. And so that works in the context of this particular story well. I think in terms of design, he's not all that great or interesting of a villain. It's weird to take such a sort of tabula rasa of a villain as sort of this, as the first guy in this starter Superman set here. But I think ultimately it works a lot more than it doesn't. And one thing I love about this is the change in animation style to a cell shaded animation style. And it's where the borders are sort of black around every character and thing in it. And it just really makes everything pop in a way that looks like none of the other animated films that I quite enjoyed.
Actually, I dig the art style too. And the last thing I wanted to say that was a really big positive for this movie is they retool a lot of Superman's origin. Not the core, he's a baby who came to Earth, but just the way he gets introduced. And they tied the Martian Manhunter to that, which I didn't expect it to work, and it ends up being one of the stronger elements of it, as the Martian Manhunter is basically who Superman was in the movie almost, who's like afraid and jaded and no, humanity is going to react badly, and Superman's having to spend the whole movie go like, no, like we have to show them that hope.
Yeah.
He was a great foil for Superman in this.
Agreed. And I love that it even ends on a sort of, not a cliffhanger, but a sort of like, there are more of us out there. Like way with both Kryptonians and Martians. And I was like, that's a nice way to make you interested to see what happens next in this storyline.
How about, let me say this. I remember the first Justice League New 52 movie. It was the very first one, and it was heavy on the action, heavy on the dark, and not really heavy on the story. And I remember us all going like, I guess it was fun, but that's it. Yeah. Watching this, like, I'm legitimately excited for what they're doing next in this vein, is if they maintain it instead of just doing a bunch of standalone unconnected stuff. Like, dude, I want more of this.
I hope this is because they were listening to a lot of the fans like us. I want, when they do a Batman one in the reboot, that you're like, he doesn't have all the super gadgets that make him like giant bat armor and shit. No, he's a detective who hunts killers. I want to see that Batman. I want to see more of that sort of 70s Batman.
Yeah.
But we'll see. That's a movie that hasn't even been made yet, so I don't know what to say. I'm not going to criticize a film before it's even come out.
It may not even be pitched, but come on, it's DC. Yeah. They're making another Batman cartoon.
There's no question.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a 2-disc release. It comes with a matching slipcover and a digital copy, of course. Bonus features Lobo, Natural Force of Chaos for 10.5 minutes, which is where, they take a look at the origins of Lobo in the comics, how he was reinvented in the 90s, how he got super popular, different versions of him. There's the same type thing with Martian Manhunter for about 9 minutes. There's a sneak peek at the next animated film. They didn't even, weirdly, I saw one list here says, so fresh they didn't even name it on the menu. But it's Batman Soul of the Dragon, a 70s adventure with Richard Dragon, Ben Turner, Lady Shiva, and O Sensei. I'm like, oh, yes, please.
Yeah, basically exactly what we want. So, yeah, cool.
As long as you manage to do it without being offensive, which is often not a lot to ask, but as long as you can manage to do that, then yes, please make that movie. Bring it to me, put it in my hot, sweaty little geeky hands.
And then make a Blue Beetle movie. Please, guys, please.
Dude,
give me a Blue Beetle or Booster Gold.
And different. Booster Gold. Come on. They're the team, right? You put those two guys together. We've been calling for that for fucking ever. Yeah. And nothing. But that's because, all the DC upper echelon staff is just hanging on our every word, Aaron. All right. So we're going to move on. And our next one, we're going back to an old classic from 1988 that has been upgraded to 4K, and I'd say a long overdue upgrade, because the last upgrade of Beetlejuice, the Blu-ray, was okay. It was a decent upgrade. It was a nice set they put together, but it had like a hologram cover and all that. But I didn't feel like they did as much work on the actual film itself as they should have. Well,
the transfer was okay.
It was okay. This is a very much nicer one. It fucking pops. And a movie this colorful and so many layers from dark blacks to really bright colors needs to pop. And wow, they did a really fantastic job on it. It looks glorious. This is one of the ones I was like, as soon as we got it, we popped it in like, oh man. My wife's like, I haven't seen this, God, in forever. I'm like, good, then we're watching it.
Well, this was
I've seen it like 20 times. But,
I want to say this and the original Tim Burton Batman were the two movies that kind of defined the Tim Burton style for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because this was like, no, he's making wacky shit. It's a shot across the bow. Like, this is around the same time that he was doing Edward Scissorhands. It was his like creative high point as far as the critics are concerned.
Yes.
So like, it's good that it's finally getting a transfer worthy of the visuals of the movie.
Yeah, no, and this is the ultimate copy of it, basically, at this point. Except, there's some extra features on the Blu-ray version that you're not getting here. So I'm like in one of those positions where I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to keep 2 copies of this on my shelf now. No, but it does have the 20th anniversary edition Blu-ray shoved in here, which, I mean, it's got... a few extra things. It's honestly not essential. I don't know what I'm talking about. There's just a tiny bit of extra though. There's a few of the episodes from the cartoon show, which was better than it had any right to be. I'll just say.
Well, it always gets weird when you get into these kind of more archival releases, because it's like, yay, this is the best transfer that's ever had. This is the best it's ever going to look. But then here, this other set that came out 5 years ago or 10 years ago has all this content that just, the new one doesn't have. It's a question of, as a fan, is the visual upgrade worth it? But at the same time, those people who it's worth it for, they're going to be the ones who want those special features, that documentary or pick your various content. And so, like, if you need a new copy, if you're one of the people who really want it to look good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a 4K TV, this is a good showpiece film for it. The audio is also an excellent choice here, with multiple options available in different languages, 14 different languages of subtitles. I mean, this is, they really tried to make this like the ultimate version here. And that's pretty fucking cool. I'm always shocked how old this movie makes me feel though. And it's entirely Alec Baldwin. Cause
he's so young.
He's so young. I'm like, holy shit, look, he's just a baby.
He has long hair and no wrinkles, and he's like maybe 30. Just,
yeah. Yeah, this is still fun. If you've never seen Beetlejuice, what's keeping you, man? This is, and I'm the guy who always talks shit about Tim Burton. This movie is unassailable, and it has one of the best soundtracks, I think, of any movie like ever. The Danny Elfman soundtrack to this is wonderful. God. One of the options is there's a soundtrack only track you can play on here. It's so good. I could literally sing the soundtrack from the first note all the way to the end without even watching the movie. I've listened to it so many goddamn times. So bringing me back here and going to a little side story. So I worked on a haunted house. The last haunted house I ever worked in was Richard Garriott, who created the Origin games, the Ultima games, and owned Origin Systems, among other things, was throwing, as he did every other year, this huge, super ridiculously expensive, like millions of dollars expensive haunted house in his own house, which was a mansion with a castle-like mansion with like a moat and secret doors and all sorts of shit in it. And I had gotten here relatively recently, and I was super excited to be a part of this. My roommates were like, oh dude, we're doing this, you should come. I mean, it's volunteer, but they feed you and everything, and it's cool. And it was like one of the greatest times of my whole life. But one thing I learned about a certain type of dork is they don't know about any music except soundtracks to movies and television shows. They just don't. They don't listen to any music except for soundtracks to movies and television shows. They couldn't tell you about any of it other than maybe what their dad listened to. They just don't know, because the whole time I was there, nobody, not even once, put anything on a stereo in any part of this huge sprawling estate that wasn't the soundtrack to a movie or a television show. And one of the ones that got played incessantly was this one. And at least that was okay. And weirdly, Conan the Barbarian, that got played a lot too.
Conan the Barbarian gets played a lot by that type of geek. And I've known them throughout my life as well. It's always Superman, Star Trek 2, Conan, Indiana Jones, and pick your Danny Elfman piece. I've actually found it's usually Batman Returns that I hear a lot of. But, you know, Bumblejuice, Beetlejuice is up there too. It's like, yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So we're going to go on to our next movie, which is a new release, not a re-release, called The Outpost. This actually just came out in theaters right at the beginning of the COVID epidemic, really, and which means it disappeared almost immediately. They had put it up for VOD, and it actually performed really well on VOD. And I was surprised because this looked like one of those crappy red box, like, I mean, Orlando Bloom is like the big star on the cover, and he's in it for all of 20 minutes before he's not in it anymore. It's a war movie, military soldiers doing military things based on a true story. I mean, there's a billion of these, right? So I didn't expect this to be much. I mean, it's got Scott Eastwood as one of its lead actors. And I was
like the main, yeah.
Ugh. Look, mad credit to your dad for as many great movies as he was in and created. You're not great. You're not your dad, and not a good actor. Sorry. But The Outpost ended up being surprisingly entertaining. I mean, even its director, Rod Lurie, doesn't have the world's best list of films he's worked on. I mean, he directed the remake of Straw Dogs, which was not great. Nothing But the Truth in 2008. Resurrecting the Champ in 2007. The Last Castle in 2001. The Contender in 2000. I mean, they're all
they're okay
films. And honestly, I'm not going to rave about The Outpost. It's better than okay, but I'm not going to go back and rewatch this thing. It is based on a true story, which multiple films have been made about, the Battle of Cam Desh in the war in Afghanistan. The story is of the 53 U.S. soldiers and a few Latvian military advisors who were there, who were in this awful place to be stationed in. It was just like literally the valley between mountains all around it, which is just insane.
Yeah,
like
it's like one of the least defensible positions you can think of. In fact, like when they first show the place, they do a great thing, which is the camera walks out of the building looking at the back of their head and just spins around them. And you're just seeing, oh, it's mountaintop and everyone in every direction can shoot us at all times. We have no cover.
And that's just it. Everyone is perpetually, they're joking and laughing and doing, things you see in every military film like this that take place when everybody's back at station. But there's a level of nervousness going through everyone, and people bring it up. Like, we've got to get out of here. I can't wait for my time to be up, because this place is like a explosive barrel waiting to be set off for sure. And sooner or later, of course, it's going to be, before this movie is over, with the Taliban eventually moving in. I mean, they're put there to engage the locals with community development stuff, and the locals are not thrilled about them being there either, and they're not sure the locals aren't the Taliban. So the first half of this is kind of the soldiers interacting back and forth with the locals. There's a couple minor flare-up events, but nothing really huge, and a lot of soldiers sort of joking back and forth with each other. And the second half is about the attack when shit went down. And I gotta tell you, the first half was okay. I'm interested. It's better than I thought it was going to be. A lot of that had to do with some of the good actors other than Scott Eastwood and, like I said, Orlando Bloom, who wasn't here for very long, Caleb Landry Jones, who usually plays villainous characters, but here is actually the most fascinating person among the cast here. But the first half's okay. The second half is shot so goddamn well in showing this impossible battle that these guys, some of them, somehow survived, that it's really gripping. It had spent just enough time with these characters to get to know who they were and things about them, that when they start getting shot at and dying, I actually knew who they were and kind of gave a shit, So I was into it. At the end, I was like, I never would have thought in a million years this was going to be a movie I was going to dig, but I kind of dug it.
You know, I mostly agree with you. It's very much following that Black Hawk Down template where if you remove the actual core true event that they're telling, this movie doesn't have a story. Nothing really happens. It's just half, okay, these are the people who are going to be involved in this true event, and then here's the true event as it plays out. And that is like its own genre of film. That is not a knock. It's just something to be aware of. My problem with this movie is I think that this was an okay movie that would have been great if it had a proper budget. Like the moment to moment filmmaking, once it gets into the actual attack, which is basically 400 Afghan soldiers basically storming this place, and they're lobbing mortars in, they're shooting missiles, they're shooting grenades and bullets, and it's just a sustained attack as the American troops are just trying to survive the next hour or two. And the director does a good job of, he'll do a lot of handheld Steadicam. He sticks with one character and will follow them through. So there's lots of longer takes where we're very clear what's happening. There's the drama of will they survive or not, but I never really got a sense for the layout of the whole facility. And so there were a lot of times where they would be like, we got to go through here and make this turn and do this and lay out their plan. And I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. It was like, okay, I guess we'll see that next. And I feel like this movie could have used basically more time and more aerial footage to kind of show us, okay, yeah, that guy's getting attacked over there, and then we are here, and we can see him getting attacked over there, and we can see us here at the same time, so we know what's going on. Like that's what separated it from what feels like a VOD movie, albeit a good VOD movie, and then what feels like a movie worthy of a major theatrical release. It's just that money, unfortunately. But for what it was, this was a well-shot movie with good moment-to-moment action.
Yeah.
It does a good job of portraying the confusion of war. It's just that there's never really an action scene that feels like an authentic action scene to me. It's always just, here's a close-up of somebody ducked behind something, and then they're running, and there's dust flying everywhere. It would have been nice to get a better sense of that action geography, and it would have made this a much better movie. As it was, though, like it was good. I really enjoyed this. It was much better than I expected going in.
Aaron's like Patton. He wants to be the big table where he's moving around the little troops from room to room with his little slider stick.
So quality action geography is one of the things that it's easy to forget in filmmaking because it requires you to take a step back and think about how scene one plays with scene two, plays with scene three.
Of course.
And action movies usually do a good job of scene one makes sense and is good, and scene two makes sense and is good. But when you look at the whole, it just doesn't track. Like, there have been a lot of relatively big budget or even AAA major Hollywood international release films that just don't knack that. And so it's something I look for when I watch an action film.
That's totally fair.
Even if it's a historical or true event type of story, it's still a movie, and they should still create that experience.
Well, I will say that I certainly have never been in the military. I mean, can you imagine? Would have killed. I would have died, but very quickly probably, and by my own troops. Call me Private Gomer Pyle. But a lot of soldiers have raved about this film being one of the most realistic portrayals of just day-to-day life in the modern day military, that these soldiers were really, really realistically portrayed. And even people who were here were saying this is very close to what actually happened. So I think generally, if you are someone who's been in the military or interested in military films, this is going to have an added appeal because of that. And there are some bonus features here as well. There's Inside COP Keaton, behind the scenes, behind the lines, which is about 30-minute long extra feature with Jake Tapper, who's the producer and the author of the book on which the film is based, along with the cast and crew and some of the other real service members who the film was based, share how they feel about the film. There's an audio commentary with the director. There's a test footage for a scene that didn't get into the film with Eastwood and Jones, but it's just the rehearsal of that scene. They didn't actually film the scene. There's a song rehearsal for Everybody Cries, which is in the end credits. So it's an acoustic performance of the song. And there's footage from the battle scene rehearsals, but just for like a minute, which is always interesting because that sort of thing, it looks real on camera. And then when you look at it where all the magic is gone, it's like, it just looks so weird.
There's one thing I wanted to call out about this movie too before we move on that's not a special feature, and it's something the movie does that I've not really seen other war films do, is that it shows the emotional impact of the events on the characters after the fact and actually spends the time. Like there's a character who basically starts out as a fuck up, and over the course of the movie he finds his hero, is the only way I can say it without spoiling anything. And like, it's such a small moment. It takes up maybe a minute, but it ended up being like watching what he dealt with after the fact was maybe my favorite minute of the whole movie. It was nice to see that instead of them just going like, look, our soldiers are warrior gods and they may be flawed, but no, this has no impact on them. It was nice to be like, oh yeah, no, they're all broken as humans after this, and they really need to figure out how to learn again or how to live again.
Yeah, and the sequel, The Outpost 2, is just a romantic comedy where a character is like bitter and broken by this experience, but he meets a young handicapped girl who teaches him how to live again until she dies of the disease that made her handicapped.
She's not going to be a handicapped person. The person the movie is about is going to be the handicapped person, and the central figure who he meets is going to be like his VA nurse who finally connects with him and makes him feel close, and he realizes all the trauma he went through.
Yeah, but then she's got to have cancer or something, right?
I was going to say he dies, and like, because that just seems to be the way it would go, and then it like pivots to be about her then and the impact he had on her life.
So the third movie, The Outpost 3, is where, like, no, see, that's why he's got to live, right? Because he gets, like, he's so tired of people dying, he wants to stop people dying. So he tries out this experimental treatment to restore his legs so he can walk again, and it gives him superpowers, and he becomes a vigilante.
He becomes the Punisher, and we circle back again.
All right, we're going to wrap this up with our final movie of the week, and that is the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray release of Pitch Black. And wow, I've been waiting for this one for a long time because I am a total dork for Pitch Black. Okay, yes, there are two good movies in this series.
Hey, no. There are two good movies, and then there's one movie that you kind of go, you know what? I get what you were going for.
I really have a hard time sitting through the Chronicles of Riddick. It's so cornball.
It's Conan in space.
But the third one is great. I love Riddick, but Pitch Black is still the standout. It's a straight up, just bare bones, people on a planet, flying alien predators coming after them. They only come out at night, and then unfortunately this planet's got a super fucking long night. It's cool. And your lead guy, Vin Diesel, this was his big breakout film, obviously. Like, his whole look was just insanely cool, right? His story, like, oh, he's this unstoppable killer that's being transported by the military, or in this case, not by the military, but by why can I not think of the term? Not headhunter, but...
bounty hunter?
Bounty hunter. I couldn't remember it for Lobo.
Well, he was a marshal, is what they're called in the movie.
Right. But he's a bounty hunter.
Yeah, he's a bounty hunter.
Yeah. And... Riddick is like, they're like, oh, he's terrifying, he's a killer, and he is, but only if you're bad, okay? Or generally if you're bad, okay?
I think the character work in this movie is great. Like, Riddick is the homicidal psychopath, which he is, but he also cares about people and is not just totally heartless. And then, like, the captain, who's supposed to be this badass commander character, sacrifices the lives of hundreds like in the first 2 minutes and is basically trying to deal with her own cowardice. Like, every character has another layer. Even the bounty hunter, who spends like half the movie being this marshal, this lawgiver-esque character, is totally addicted to morphine, which he injects into his fucking eyeball.
Yeah,
and is like totally corrupt, and every character has layers. It's a
Yeah,
very simple movie with very good, deep characters. And I even remember Vin Diesel was the surprise main character because he really isn't played as the main until about halfway through the movie.
Well, yeah, because
even
the movie,
into the third act.
the movie tricks you into thinking that he's going to be a secondary threat.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, we're trapped on this planet. Like, maybe this movie's just about him getting out and starting to kill them. And then you get the monsters, you're like, shit. But then you've still got Riddick to deal with. He's going to be a problem at some point, not realizing that this is sort of like that, hey, when the chips are down, this guy turns into a hero. He's a super cynical, fuck them if they don't want to help themselves hero, but nonetheless. And his relationship with the little boy / girl in the movie is really good and strong. So strong that they actually made a anime sort of sequel that takes place between this and Riddick, which the animation is super primitive, but is super worth watching and is indeed included on here. It's 35 minutes. It's called The Chronicles of Riddick Dark Fury. It is very enjoyable. It's definitely in tone in between Pitch Black and The Chronicles of Riddick. So, hey, Aaron, that would be right up your alley.
I've seen it. Riddick is one of the few things that has a surprising amount of ancillary materials, and it's actually all good. Like, the comics are decent. The video games
are great.
Fucking great. And I remember this animation came out with a second video game because it was a setup for it. And like I watched it back then. Like these are good. They're the way the director described it initially, which yes, this was mainly about Chronicles, but deal with it. Was that this is supposed to be Conan. It's Conan in space with Riddick as the Conan character. And like once you see this as this space opera a la Star Wars, but it's this darker, more bestial space opera. Like I love the Riddick series. It's great. You're right.
I'm a fan of the character. I like all but one of the things with him. I like I said, it was just so fucking goofy. No, I could not. I crossed a line. I can't really defend Chronicles of Riddick. I just enjoy it. That's fair.
It's like another movie that shall not be named but has Fallen Kingdom in the title. Like, I know it's a terrible piece of shit. It just works for me.
I can't enjoy that one.
And I really I think they're making another Riddick movie, which is I'm happy about.
They are constantly talking about making another Riddick movie because guess who owns the rights to the character now?
Is it actually
it's Vin Diesel?
Yeah. David Twohy sold it?
I don't think Twohy technically ever owned it per se. I mean, he co-wrote and directed the movie, but I mean, rarely in cases like that does the director own the film.
I didn't think of it as him directing. I legitimately thought I thought it was his baby, and it was always his movies.
Well, he did direct the third one. He teamed up again with it for Riddick, which once again was pretty damn good in my opinion. But Universal, I think, owned the rights to this. But for whatever reason, I only assume Diesel owns a portion of it or owns it outright. I'm not sure, but I have heard that one of the reasons he pimps it so hard is not just because he loves the character, but that he gets a nice little slice of that pie.
You know what? I'm okay with that. Give me more like cynical, fucked up, weird Riddick movies like the third one, and I'm here for it.
That's fair. And so this comes with all of the previously existing extras, and there's a lot because, like I said, Diesel loves this series. Every time they put out one of the various versions of it, they've always put out a bunch. Yeah, they've always put out a bunch of new stuff for each new version that's come out, and this is all of it. And I think this is the first release that comes with Dark Fury attached and all the bonus features on Dark Fury as well. And there is one new set of things. There's a 24-minute Nightfall, the making of Pitch Black, which is mainly an interview with the director and his perspective and memories on it, which is worth watching. And there's another thing called Black Box, which are just little 10-plus minute interviews with some of the people who worked on the film. Peter Chiang, Rihanna Griffith, Graham Revell, David Egby, and Claudia Black. I used to have such a crush on. Holy shit, back in the day. But yeah, this is it's from Arrow. It comes with a booklet. They did not fuck around with putting together a super solid edition for people who love the shit out of Pitch Black like me and like Aaron to an even greater extent because he can watch the sequel. But that's it for our show this week. I want to know, Aaron, I can guess. But what is our pick of the week?
Oh, well,
I'm pretty sure I know.
So there's the title that made me happiest, which is Superman. But honestly, pick of the week, as far as like the quality of the set, everything it has, it's got to be Pitch Black. Like,
okay.
Just the release is so good.
It is. You're right. It's, as a whole package, it's like, wow, you get a lot for your money here. If you're a fan of this film, it's everything.
But honestly, in 2020, with the notorious RGB having died recently and our nation continuing its free fall into a dumpster, like Superman's what I like. Just go watch that. Feel some joy at some point in your life, people.
I mean, I hear you, but I feel like Riddick would be the one to handle this scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a choice here, Superman would be like, okay, come on, we got to listen to everybody. Let's, I don't want to do anything against the law. And Riddick would be like, fuck that. Some motherfuckers are just begging for death.
I don't know. Like that's kind of what I was digging about Superman a little bit. It felt like this newer Superman, he wants everybody to talk, but he's also like, yeah, but you're kind of evil. So
yeah,
I'm
but that's
just
what,
not going to listen to you.
That's what I want Superman to be. And that's what I want Riddick to be, like Riddick is. I'm just saying in our world, if there's a choice between Superman or Riddick, Riddick is the man to get shit done.
Valid. just have Riddick appear. We don't need to get him there. Just be like, okay, take care of business and we're going to forget you exist.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, or listening. And we will be back very soon with more Digital Noise. Next episode is definitely with John. We were supposed to record it today, and there was a screw up, but so we're recording it tomorrow. So that's coming out right on the heels of this one.
And then after that, you're going to get to hear me geek out hardcore because there are a lot of titles coming up in my very particular niche love genre. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, you snuck a look at the sheet before you even got the movies.
I did. I was like, bitch, you better give me these titles because I am
They're
already going to buy them.
They're like right behind me, man. You could come get them anytime. Here they are. Come pick them up, baby.
Okay, baby, I will. You know how I do.
All right. You know it's
how
waiting
I
for
do.
you. It's sitting there. I'll leave them on the bed.
Yeah, baby.
This has been Night Talk with the Blues with Aaron Papa Bear Woodall and Chris I Got the Blues Cox.